Hi guys, and welcome to another, we promise we're not copying the Sunlight Blade top 10. So today is going to be the things that Bloodborne
Well, we're not. He does gameplay, we do analysis.
Ah, yeah.
We're going to tell you the things that Bloodborne done right today.
Yeah,
So-
and I mean, Bloodborne's been given a lot of flack, really. I mean, less so
We've
than Dark
done-
Souls 2.
We've done the things Bloodborne got wrong already, so you guys can obviously check that if you want to see the flip side of this video. But we're going to focus on the benefits.
Yeah,
this
so
time
I
around.
think we'll just get straight into it then.
Yeah, so point number one's the setting.
Yeah, now the setting for Bloodborne is great, and it's really a unique take on, at the very least, the Victorian era setting. And it's got a good combination between the fact, you know, it's Gothic London, it's got that whole Whitechapel, Jack the Ripper feel to it, but then it's also got the whole Jekyll and Hyde feel to it, as well as having the whole Eldritch horror, fucking Lovecraftian feel to it. I mean, it's pretty much got like every kind of classic Victorian genre all packed into one, and it's awesome. Really, it really is great to see. It was a feast for the eyes.
Yeah, it was a nice change of pace.
And at the very least, it isn't a medieval setting as well. So you know, exactly, it is a change of pace in that sense.
yeah, it's really nice. Is there a dragon in Bloodborne?
Don't think there is.
I think that's a first.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, well done. Okay, and point number two that we're going to make is the graphics of this game are, without a doubt, a step up from Dark Souls 2 and a step up from Dark Souls 1. It's kind of what
Of
Dark
course.
Souls 2 should have been when they showed us it.
Yeah.
And it took obviously the graphics are downgraded from what they showed us at trailers because
But
there's
only a
always
little
that. But nowhere near as much as Dark Souls 2.
Yeah.
Dark Souls 2 looks almost like a different game in some places.
We didn't feel shortchanged, and although we shouldn't be praising something for something that it didn't do, such
Yeah.
as show us one thing, give us the other, the graphics were really nice. There was a lot of like clutter on screen, and all the areas felt really organic. And now, I know it sounds like a buzzword, but when you look at things like maybe like Earthen Peak in Dark Souls 2, where you can clearly see someone has just got 4 flat walls and just stuck them together with a texture, it didn't feel like that with Bloodborne. It really felt like,
Yeah.
you know, everything just looked nice, and it was just packed with detail. It was just so much to see in it. It was just great, you know.
Yeah, and I think it's the first thing that we've seen where it does actually feel like there's a step up. It feels like this is next gen.
Yeah.
It feels like that for the first time that we've had, because Dark Souls 2 Scholar doesn't feel like that. It just feels like better Dark Souls 2.
Yeah.
But Bloodborne actually looks and has the feel of a game that belongs on PS4.
Yeah, totally. I mean, although this gen is still like Gen 7.5, it's still,
Yeah.
this is the half.
Yeah, so hopefully the DLC has some nice improvements.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so the third point is kind of like half and half of the last 2 points, but all the designs were absolutely spot on. Like, you know, you'd think that going with the Victorian era feel, you know, they might lose their way somewhat, or like how much can they really do with the Victorian style of things, but really all the designs were so good. All the armors looked great, all the weapons looked great, every area was distinct and again packed full of detail, and then, you know, the enemy designs was great as well, although, you know, maybe the Yarnamite hunters were a little bit lacking in variety. Everything else was really quite great in terms of design. Like, everything just felt horrible and like mucky. And
Canehurst had some really beautiful stuff in Canehurst, like all the side stuff like on the walls, not the library part of it, but there was like parts of Canehurst where you would see like the candles and the paintings on the walls, and that it felt really good.
yeah. So in
nice.
terms of aesthetic design, anyway, Bloodborne really is still up there with, you know, like Demon Souls in terms of the atmosphere that you get from Bloodborne.
Yeah, it's a very good game. You know, a game's good when you can step into something and you're like, it's actually time to finish this part. I've built all this up. It feels fucking awesome, and now it's time to finish it and find out what the next big thing is.
Yeah.
It's a really nice atmosphere to have going into and coming out of something like a boss fight. It's a really good like feeling to have, and then you've got all the added atmosphere on it. Like Gehrman's fight was amazing. It's a huge pivotal moment at the end of the game, fought in this really nice flower bed.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, so I mean, aesthetic design wise, it was absolutely fantastic.
And our fourth point to bring up is the weapon movesets that they added into the game. They gave us stuff like running R2s and in some cases L2s. We had charge attacks, 2 different back steps, which of course depended if whether you held the left stick back when you hit the dodge button or not. So you would have like a back step and a back dash attack. So they separate that. It was really cool. Transform attacks, the weapons as well. They felt quite unique and different. I mean, there were some like the Saw Spear and the Saw Cleaver, which were very similar. But then you had things that were completely different, like Ludwig's and the Kirkhammer. Like these weapons, yeah, the long swords I'm picking aren't really the best examples, but the second stage of those weapons were all completely different. It was really fun.
I mean, although we complained about the lack of variety,
there's a wheel in the game as a weapon.
Yeah.
How fucking cool is that?
And I mean, looking at what the DLC's got to offer in terms of weapon, at least in terms of how unique each weapon is, really, I'm very much looking forward to playing about with some of them. I
can't wait to use that Saw Cleaver thing that looks like it's like
Pizza
some sort of no, you're thinking of the giant buzzsaw thing. I'm talking about the Saw Cleaver, which is like the fragmented chain blade thing. Yeah. It looks like something out of Bleach. That looks so fun.
So yeah, I mean, weapon movesets were something that they got right. I mean, it would be great to see the expanded movesets in Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, there was also a lot of the weapons as well had this really nice fluid thing where you could go like R1, R1, L2, and it would look like a really nice combination of moves. The burial blades, like R1, R1, R2 combo, looked really smooth and really fluid. The rolling attacks going into other attacks all looked really nice just to combine all these different things together. The thing that they didn't get quite right though was the timing on some of the attacks made it difficult to combine, but it looked really, really good. They really made the weapons feel a lot more robust in this game than they did in previous games, and they were all incredibly unique.
So the next one is really the bosses in general. Most of the bosses in the main game for Bloodborne are actually great. Like, they're all really intense. Well, for the most part, I mean, there's a few bosses that are a bit like but most of the bosses are actually really good. The fact that the game gives you an option of 3 different bosses to pick from, you can do like 1, 2, or 3 if you want, is really great. And
bosses.
Yeah, and Gehrman is always challenging. Like, it's still challenging for us. So
I mean, if he's not challenging for you anymore, he's at the very least still a fun fight anyway, because it keeps you on your toes.
I mean, then, like, the fact that along with the Chalice dungeons give you even more bosses and stuff, I mean, really, the bosses in the game were fantastic, where Dark Souls 2 was really lacking. There's a lot of bosses in Bloodborne where you go, no, that was a good boss, and it's always going to be a good boss.
Yeah, Gascoigne, Gehrman. These boss fights are always going to be somewhat entertaining and somewhat fun. And unfortunately, we didn't get that from Dark Souls 2 until the DLCs.
Yeah, pretty much.
But Bloodborne got it. Bloodborne got it really, really good this time around when it came to end area bosses.
So Bloodborne got secrets perfectly on the level of like Dark Souls 1. It seems a little bit less apparent, but when you think about the fact that the game only has 6 mandatory bosses, there's a lot of optional areas. So I mean, one person's playthrough of the game can be actually quite different from another person's playthrough of the game. So it makes exploration like a big part of it, because you could completely miss Canehurst, you could completely miss Hypogean Goal at the beginning.
I completely missed Upper Cathedral Ward until like just before I fought Gehrman on my first playthrough.
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of secrets, the game is absolutely perfect. And then that also combines with NPC quests, which is our next point. Because some NPC quests can interrupt and change other NPC quests.
Like Adela and Ariana. Yeah, you can interfere. You can have Adela kill Ariana, or you can just keep going with Ariana. It's really interesting.
Or you could end up sending the beggar to the church, then he would end up killing the NPCs.
Or you could send them all to Yosefka's clinic and let them all die.
Sadly, the rewards you get for the NPCs quests are kind of lacking, and I think that's why people kind of maybe overlook them as much, but the actual quests themselves are actually great. They're all unique, they're all interesting.
Yeah, they're all pretty cool. I mean, especially the hunter quests like Eileen's and Alfred's.
Yeah.
The ending of Alfred's quest is like a really creepy, cruel moment, and it's amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the first time I've looked at this and I've went, wow, they actually just got an NPC quest. I don't want anything more from his quest, and they ended it at that, and that was perfect.
Exactly.
They got it right.
So in terms of quests and secrets, the game absolutely nails it.
Yeah, I just wish there was hidden walls involved in the single player, but they are in Chalice Dungeon. But I wish there was more of them.
There's another thing, you could completely miss Nightmare Frontier.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of the game. So many things you could miss.
There's probably still parts of the game that you guys haven't even stepped a foot in.
Probably.
You never know. Let's see what the DLC brings us. More things that we'll get to miss.
Oh, and another thing in terms of the secrets is the end bosses as well. There's another secret.
Yeah, the 3 different bosses you can choose from.
The secret end boss is perfect. Like, it's so good. It's so good in that sense.
And of course, the next point we want to make is that they actually changed up the formula in Bloodborne in quite a weird way. Like, it's not Dark Souls, but it still feels familiar.
Yeah.
But it's new.
It still feels like a Souls game, and fuck anyone for saying that it isn't part of. It isn't a Souls game. It is a Souls game.
It's the only thing that it's not a Souls game by name and lore. That is pretty much the only thing. The actual core gameplay, the way it works, the UI, it's all Souls game.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's still changed up just enough that it feels fresh.
Yeah, like the much faster combat. You don't get to exploit backstabs at all in Bloodborne for the most part.
Exactly.
Your critical attacks work different as well, and it's really interesting how they changed up the combat. And it still felt like Dark and Demon Souls.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have shields, you can't rely on that anymore, and you've got the rally mechanic now.
Yeah, Blood Gems is a sort of like secondary upgrade system for your weapons.
Yeah, like now that you have to parry using the gun, there's lots of different things. I mean, it is all mainly combat focused changes, but that's fine because that's all that it really needed.
Yeah, the bosses as well, they changed up the form of the boss as well. Like in Dark Souls 2, a lot of the bosses, it's just let them finish their combo, then go in and attack. But in Bloodborne, with enough time and practice, you can get attacks in between their combos and you can play it however you want to play it.
Yeah.
And it's just really fun, and it's brings us back to how the game just feels so fluid, but it's not Dark Souls, but it definitely is Dark Souls.
Okay, so level design is the next thing that we want to say that Bloodborne got right, and I mean it really did get right. The levels feel a lot like Demon Souls, at least for us in terms of level design. It is a huge step up from Dark Souls 2, like Jesus Christ. So, I mean, each level looks back on itself, and although the world design isn't quite as good as Dark Souls 1 in terms of, although two areas might link together, this link is never like a useful shortcut like it is in Dark Souls 1, for instance like Darkroot Basin leading back up to Undeadburg,
or Firelink's Shrine leading back up to Undead Parish via the elevator after you go all the way around.
The issue is though is that it's still cool to see the world be a cohesive world. It still links together.
Having Old Yarnum as your first area experience of the game was really good because it set the boundary right then and there. Like it pretty much said you're going to be looking for shortcuts in this game.
Yeah.
Because the first thing you did was get a shortcut all the way back to the start of Central Yarnum.
I mean, there's pretty much shortcuts in every single level, so I mean, there's shortcuts that lead back to the beginning in the forest, also in Yahar'gul.
And pretty much everywhere because there's only one or two lanterns in every area. It all loops back around constantly.
Exactly, so it's great and it rewards exploration.
I hope to see that in Dark Souls 3.
Oh, definitely.
Because that was really good. That was a nice thing. And of course, when we're talking about level design as well, the look of the areas and the architecture, it all helps create that feel and that atmosphere of that you are in the shit right now.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's another thing they've done really well when it comes to the design of the level. And that's not really about how, you know, the level flows and stuff like that, but that's more about the visual design of the level is really nice just to like walk through and look at. So I was pretty happy with that as well. And as Tony said, it's definitely a return to form when it comes to like go back to Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1 sort of design, and not Dark Souls 2.
Yeah.
Back in the corner, stepchild.
Yeah, exactly.
And the last point we're going to make is dungeons.
Yeah.
If you like Bloodborne, you can't complain about the dungeons because it's just more Bloodborne and you can play it as much as you like because it's ever changing. It's fun.
Extra content is never a bad thing, even though you could argue that it was executed not quite as well as it could have been, but at the same time it was still great. Like,
they added things in it that you don't get in the regular game, like certain bosses and certain enemies and stuff like that you'd never see in the main game.
Yeah, exactly.
There's scorpions in the dungeons.
I don't know. There you go.
See? There's a boss at the very end of the dungeons that you need to kill to get platinum. There's shit like that which is just really cool. They give the dungeons a purpose, but they're also not required. It's like if you don't want to do them, then you don't need to do them.
Exactly.
But if you want more Bloodborne, then you have that at your fingertips almost infinitely, which is great.
You can't fault the fact that the game just essentially gives you infinite content if you want it. So
infinite content if you're happy to like go through dungeons and stuff like that. Sure.
Yeah.
Let's not forget as well. Like this brings us back to our point on secrets again. The dungeons had some really cool stuff, like they had hidden messenger baths, there was the illusory walls came back from Dark Souls 1 that you had to hit to go through.
Yeah.
Patches is a merchant in one of the dungeons and I still haven't found them because I think it's through Maruai Hill route and fuck that. But There's so many cool little things that they've put into just this one part of the game that you can just choose to do or not do.
Exactly.
It's the same as all the. It's like it's once again. It's a lot like there's only 6 mandatory bosses. The rest of the game is just do what you like.
Exactly.
And that's what the dungeons are. If you want to do them, do them.
So I guess that's our main 10 points for Bloodborne. Although Bloodborne overall is enjoyable. It's great. I would say personally that it's overall the tightest experience. It's the most cohesive game out of all the Souls games.
Yeah.
In terms of it doesn't feel rushed in any way.
It's the least. I don't think it done very well when it comes to lore.
Oh, it's the worst in fact in terms of like storytelling.
I think so too. Yeah. It's not a lot can be pieced together in Bloodborne, but hopefully, I mean, there's always the chance that they'll change that in the DLC. They did with Dark Souls 2 Scholar. They changed like a bunch of the lore and stuff, but it still doesn't make any fucking sense. So who cares? But hopefully we'll see more of it in Dark Souls 2. I mean, in the Bloodborne DLC, we're going to see a lot more weapons that are getting added in. We've seen like 7 new weapons or something like that in the trailer alone, so that's going to be cool.
It'd be interesting to see if they can change up how the base game plays in terms of will they actually add in more so the actual main story itself is longer. Something.
It might come with a massive balancing patch.
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows? We just need to see what comes next. But as of this moment, right here and now, that's the 10 things that we think Bloodborne got right. Feel free to disagree. Feel free to agree. We prefer the latter. But yeah, no doubt you've probably left your 12-page essay about how much you hate us and you wish we were never born in the comments section below already. We won't read that, but thanks anyway. We appreciate it. That just bumps us up the YouTube listings.
Nah, we would read it.
Yeah, we'd read it. Sometimes it's nice to be knocked down a few pegs and reminded that we actually aren't gods.
Yeah. And to be brought back to being human once more.
No, wait, we can't say this because people will think that we think we're gods because people actually think we think we're YouTube famous because we said it sarcastically that one time.
Anyway.
But yeah, that's our 10. Let us know what yours are, I guess.
Yeah.
Or if you just want to call us arseholes in the comment, you can do that too.
Yeah, do whatever.
Yeah, we'll probably call you something back. No, we won't because now they're going to do it to get a response. No, we're not. Call us an arsehole, we don't care.
See you guys.
Bye.